Hello everyone, Thunderbro here. This is the second part of my miniseries, Character Focus, in which I discuss what makes different Gintama characters good or relatable. For a more detailed explanation on my reasoning for making this series, see the first minute and a half of part 1. So anyway, on to the video. So Kagura moved to Earth from the planet Rakuyo, leaving behind a fractured family and a race of people very different from her. After her mother's death, Kagura's family broke apart and she ended up going alone to Earth to find a living. Her monster strength was exploited by Yakuza and gangsters for their own gain until she became disillusioned with them and attempted to leave. After fighting them off, she was hired by Gintoki, partly to repay her for running her over and attempting to run, partly because Kagura was broke and had nowhere to go, and partly because him and Shinpachi were too scared to turn her away. But a key point of Kagura's introduction episode is her stated intention of resisting Yato nature, because she's a part of a race that loves to fight and has a rather violent history. Basically Gintama's equivalent of Saiyans. It's expected by anyone with knowledge of the Yato race that they relish fighting and violence over all else. Kagura doesn't deny that she likes to fight, but doesn't want to engage in a violent lifestyle simply for its own sake, and would rather live a more peaceful life, avoiding the aggressive tendencies which saw her family completely torn, and that continued to afflict her brother Kamui. This is partly a reason that she is so insistent on staying at Yorozuya, and staying on Earth to try and live some sort of normal life for a person her age, such as when she befriends Princess Soyo, helps out a sick boy, or when she gets seriously overindulgent with her cell phone. In general, there are countless instances of her trying to turn her own life around, and adapt more to an Earth lifestyle. She sometimes still ends up using her advantage and strength to get what she wants, and ends up wrecking the Yorozuya's funds by eating way more than she needed to. And there are a lot of things about Earth life she doesn't know, and Gintoki himself being kind of a noble idiot as explained in the previous episode, Kagura sometimes becomes badly influenced or misinformed about things. And the fact that she lives in Kabuki district with Edo's craziest personalities doesn't help her become more Earth-like. She also constantly clashes with the resident Shinsengumi sadist, Okita Sogo, which does her no help in trying to curb her own violence. While, like I mentioned before, she tries to engage in some Earth-like activities, I don't think she strives for normalcy as we know it. But she's putting more emphasis on resisting the core ideal that Yatos have to live a harsh life of travel, mercenary work, and intense warfare. Rather, she wants to be true to what she actually wants to be, and not what other Yatos think she should be. Even if the life she lives on Earth is technically just as crazy and abnormal as, say, Kamui's lifestyle, but with less murder. What separates Kagura from most of the other Yato in the series is that she wants to be her own person and take control of her own life. While characters like Abuto, Kamui, and Hosen decided to go around wrecking shit because they saw it as the Yato way. Naturally, there are those of her own race that completely disagree with her and try to get her more in line with their thinking. Such as when Abuto tried to get Kagura to completely embrace her inner Yato during the Yoshiwara and Flames arc, which caused Kagura a lot of distress. When she inevitably went berserk on Abuto, she won the fight, but it felt like a defeat because she had to rely on her uncontrollable Yato powers, and seemed like a monster doing it, going against her desire to resist Yato nature. Basically, she had done exactly what Abuto wanted her to do. And Kagura felt an immense sense of failure as the entire point of her personal ambition was negated by her going crazy and relying on Yato powers to win. And while trying to restrain her from killing Abuto, Shinpachi summed up everything. That the person he was restraining was not the Kagura he or any of the people of Kabukicho knew. While he admitted that she had her flaws, he acknowledged that Kagura was not and never was some bloodthirsty Yato berserker, and that had never been what she wanted to become despite her violent tendencies and carryovers of her Yato heritage. He maintained that she was a peaceful person who didn't relish conflict or bloodshed. He essentially exclaimed that Kagura's current behavior was just an anomaly and not the norm. Kamui constantly looks down on Kagura and calls her weak because she doesn't live the same violent lifestyle as he does, and she's not embraced what he thinks being a Yato is, while he also resents her for more personal reasons as well. Umibozo also tried to take Kagura with him to space because he also believed she was wasting her time with the Yorozuya, and couldn't resist her true Yato nature, while he acted on his goal to either reunite or return peace to his family, without even trying to understand or listen to Kagura's input on whether she actually wanted to leave or not. So a defining factor of Kagura's experiences throughout the story of Gintama is the fact that she's constantly being told what she is and what she should and shouldn't do in her life, being ridiculed and attacked physically and verbally for wanting to live her own lifestyle rather than follow in the traditions of the Yato, first by the Yakuza and later by her own people. She stays dedicated, however, and nearly every attempt to back her into a corner fails as she stays committed to the goal of resisting what people think is the Yato nature. While obviously nobody can relate to being a part of a race of super strong people who are weak to sunlight and engage in interplanetary travel, a common issue for youth all around the world is the expectations put onto them by their families and society. There are many young people in the world who are pressured by their families and their communities to pursue a certain line of work, behavior, and set of goals because of what is perceived as the norm in any given environment, whether that environment be racial, religious, political, physical, or gender related. There are expectations on your education, who you should befriend, date, who you should vote for, as well as your moral values, all because of where one grew up and their upbringing. There are many youth who don't get to make choices on these things because it's expected that they adopt the same set of values as those that came before them, and or their community. I feel like that's the basis of what makes Kagura relatable. She's a person determined to live her own life by her own rules, while most people from her community, as well as society at large, expect her to fall in line with what's expected, much like many youth all over the world. And everyone deals with that in a different way, sometimes by compromising, by rebelling completely, or unfortunately some don't get to oppose it at all. This all varies by family and by location, but in a general sense, Kagura is a character that can speak to anyone who understands the struggle of expectation, and the various implications of it, big and small. So those are basically my thoughts on why Kagura is a relatable character, and this is partially a reason why she's my favorite Gintama character. I don't know whether it was Soreichi's intention to have her story be a criticism of societal expectation, but that's kind of how I see Kagura's story playing out. Also, this is a little side note, but I felt like Kagura had a bunch of parallels with Goku in the way their stories play out. But that's a subject for a future video, hopefully. Anyway, if you like my content enough, feel free to follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching and thanks for the continued support. Take care.